Hello and welcome to Real Chat with Kat, the podcast dedicated to igniting your entrepreneurial spirit and empowering you to conquer new horizons. In this podcast, we chat with inspiring entrepreneurs on their journey to success through some amazingly insightful and expansive conversations. These episodes thrive on thought-provoking chats where our guests fearlessly explore their path to success, sharing their experiences, failures, and triumphs. No topic is off limits as we deep dive into the talked about and not so talked about pieces it takes to build a business, overcome limiting beliefs, deal with personal struggles, and everything in between that shapes our lives and our businesses. I'm your host, Kat Polsonelli, creator and founder at The Lotus Effect, where we believe that success is not just about strategies and tactics, it's about cultivating a powerful mindset and creating customized business operations that align with you and your true purpose. Whether it's mastering time management, improving productivity, enhancing leadership skills, or simply fostering a growth-oriented mindset, we'll provide you with the tools and strategies to flourish in both your business and personal life. I'm so excited to have you join us today in this episode, so get ready to feel empowered and inspired as we learn together and from one another on how to rise above challenges, break through limitations, and unlock our full potential. Let's dive in. Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for joining me today on this episode of Real Chat with Kat. I am so excited to have you here with me today, and I am so excited to actually, bring someone back, but I am super excited to bring the duo together today. So we have Anneliese and Dustin Vance. So thank you guys both for being a part of the podcast today.
Pleasure.
So welcome. Thanks for having us.
You are so welcome. I'm super excited to dive into this. Anneliese, I know I've had you on before and we got to kind of dive into your business, but I've already seen the evolution of what you guys are doing and the things that you guys are doing together. And by the way, if you guys are not following Anneliese on her LinkedIn, you need to. It's a lot of fun. I love the posts that she puts up. So as we dive into the podcast, let's go ahead and jump right in then. And you guys kind of tell me who you are, what it is that you do, and what kind of got you into this space.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's see. If we go back to 2007, I got hired actually to sell ads in the phone book, believe it or not. Thankfully, a year later, they started us as a Google partner, and I would say I have a PhD in digital marketing because I learned it all as I went, real life training on real life customers. So it wasn't like we watched Rules of Engagement last night. It's not like a script. It's like real combat, right?
Mm-hmm.
But like with family-owned businesses. So did that for almost 14 years. Didn't know because when I got started, I was 21. So it's kind of naive that I was actually being a fractional CMO to my customers. So in 2020, November-ish, end of October, actually, when they decided we needed to part ways because I was making people look bad by getting sales through networking. They found a loophole and I was wrongfully terminated. So we proved it was wrongful termination. And from that year, we started a company, which actually, whenever he gets frustrated that we're self-employed, I remind him it is his fault. He said that I should start that consulting company that I always talked about. And I asked him for 8 weeks. It was November timeframe. So I was like, okay, let's try November and December. No one's really hiring right now, but if this doesn't work, I have 2 old bosses that will hire me in a snap of a finger. And the next day we had our first client who is still a client today. And a lot of my customers followed me over from my old job. And then I found a lot of people on LinkedIn and word of mouth and referrals and all of that. And Dustin heads up our Google ads division. So the done for you Google ads are not done by me. They are done by him.
Nice.
And what do you always say? He says, I promise things and he makes them come true. So with that, here's my better half, Dustin Vance.
I'm basically an employee. I learned a lot of the digital side more through osmosis from being around Anneliese's company in corporate America when the company made their shift from people focus to profit focus. it was a little bit more, it was time to kind of start transitioning. So I had actually started dabbing a little bit more into the Google side of things, probably about 10 years prior. They were just kind of free training, so to speak. When I realized what a company gets on a bigger company versus what they would get on an individual level, I felt like we could fill the gap with her knowledge and experience in the sales and the relationship side of things, and my ability to be flexible and relational. And with what I've learned, we just combined them together. Our original plan was for us to both be stay-home parents already, because we felt that both parents were important to be in the home versus being out in the field and letting somebody else raise our children. So a lot of our decision making down the line really focused on that. And so what the self-employed side of things does is allows us to be very available. And because digital never sleeps, I could work at a flexible schedule, and I'm able to accommodate the different things that might come up family-wise. So that we could have the lifestyle that we were aiming for.
Yeah. And Kat, if you don't mind if I jump in, because you said if something hits my brain, mommy brain has to say it now or I'm going to forget it. The life we're living now, we actually talked about when we were dating, when we were 19 and 21. And sounded very pie in the sky then, right? I always say, Dustin maybe says this, is we're really big dreamers, and then we bring it back to reality, to what we actually can do, and then work to fill in the gap. But we wanted both of us to be home. COVID actually helped with that in the beginning, because Lily was born March 8th, left the hospital March 15th. She was in the NICU for just a little bit. And we came out to seeming Armageddon at grocery stores where everything was gone. But after maternity leave, I was still working in corporate, and they were like, oh, you have a baby, stay home. So all of a sudden I got to stay home and do what I did. Now it wasn't feasible to do it the way I wanted to do it, with everyone being afraid and not wanting to open their doors. So that was a learning curve, but literally everything that played out, and I'm sure you'll get there with some of your questions, or we'll fill in, but it literally played out to exactly what we spoke 20 years ago. So
sorry, she kind of triggered a thought. So
I do that.
So we knew, I kind of saw the writing on the wall, corporate wise, when one of her bosses that I trusted and I highly respected sat her down. She was in the top, I think 5 or 10 in the nation in her field, among, I think it was like 5,000 reps. And so they got this wild idea to sit down, and they were like, we're going to cultivate her and encourage her. And I'm like, okay, great. Like, they've developed her really well up to this point. So, but then they started to explain to her that she should get a nice car, get a nice house, and
wow,
you should go and, and it should build your self-image. And a lot of the mentality was get into debt so that you would work harder. And because they were like, if she could do this way, and we were debt free at that point, like what more would they do if there was pressure, behind it? And so I kind of saw the writing on the wall, and they took it as like they were trying to cultivate her self-image and her worth and all this other stuff. And so fast forward, we kind of started putting some stuff in place and really kind of floating the idea. And we didn't realize kind of how we were going to be forced into the direction. We kind of wanted to ease into it in a different way. And so when Lily was born, I don't watch a lot of the news, so I wasn't really caught up on a lot of the doom and gloom. Oh yeah, we are, because it fits, because you went there.
No, it's the great story.
So we had no clue. Like, we didn't know what was going on. We were doing a home birth. We were doing kind of everything outside of the normal process, and everybody kind of looked at us like we had 3 heads. And we ended up having to go back to the NIC unit because Lily came late. And so she had a high bilirubin count. So jaundice. So she was very yellow.
Dehydrated. She wasn't getting.
Yeah, her eyes were yellow and all that. I'm like, you came out of where?
Baby. No, just kidding.
Something like that. I had the gremlins going through my head of like, don't feed after midnight. Don't
get them wet.
Don't get them wet.
We went to the Gremlins.
So we ended up having to go back to the NIC unit, and
All his humor's from the 80s.
So all of a sudden, like the hospital started getting like real hush hush, and I was starting to get freaked out because they were like looking over their shoulders and all this other stuff, and I thought it was like we were doing something wrong.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, the day that they shut everything down,
My birthday.
they released us from the hospital. So we ended up coming back home, and our house was basically a time capsule because when we left, we left the house as if we were doing a home birth. And so we hadn't been home. We had been gone for a week. So we came back in, and Armageddon was happening. So I opened the fridge and I'm like, I guess I'm going to the store.
Yeah.
So I was like, I'm just going to run up the street. Everybody's telling us. I didn't know anything about toilet paper shortage. I didn't know anything about, the mayhem.
Oh, yeah, your mom, didn't she bring us toilet paper at the hospital?
Yes.
She tried to.
We actually
like, thanks.
we were going back to our follow-up. What was it?
Postpartum.
Yeah, postpartum.
6 weeks.
Yeah. We happened to find a delivery truck going to, it was like an hour away to a Dollar General. And I was like, oh man, I'll get some. And I went back there and I said, are these available? And the guy looked at me like this. I could have sworn I was carrying out prison cigarettes. Like literally I come walking, I'm at the counter. 3 guys come walking in and they froze and they looked at me, and I had 2 rolls. I had 2 packs of toilet paper, and they looked straight at me, and I was like, oh crap. And the person froze with their little gun like this. And they looked over, and I could have sworn like a tumbleweed kind of flew through. And I just looked at them and said, guys, they're unloading the truck right now. You can get some. They're right back there. And they went straight to the back. I'm like, dude, you take my money now. I'll make it rain.
Out of the store.
I'm sort of like throwing money at the guy. I'm like, keep the change. I go out the car. I jump in the car and I said, go. And I said, if you start seeing me throw toilet paper rolls out the window, okay, like we don't stop.
The stragglers.
Just start chucking them.
As Lily's in the back crying. She's hungry. Yes.
So I had no clue. I had no clue it was that. So I go to the grocery store. And I'm pretty naive. I choose to stay naive. I like to believe in humanity. And so I pull up into this Kroger's, and I get out of the car, and I'm about to close the door, and I stop, and his dad chooses to stop literally right behind my bumper. He kneels down in front of his son. He gets on eye level with his son, all serious, like just straight extreme. And he looks at his son. He goes, son, it is Armageddon. We got to get ours.
The kids.
I check my shoulders. I'm looking for
like the zombie movies are coming to life. Like
100%. I'm looking around. I'm looking for people to fall on the ground to turn into a zombie, spring up. And so I shut the door and I go, should I run you over now? And he looked at me and he just glared at me, and I'm like, you okay? And he just gets up and he grabs his son and he goes in. So I go in there. I'm like, okay. And I was getting some like here and there kind of feedback from people saying that like, produce and like whole aisles were wiped out.
It was weird.
And I'm like, okay. So I go in there and I'm like, I'll just get some veggies, and I'll just do up something simple, and we'll figure it out. I don't want her to have to do anything. I want her to rest so I go in there and immediately I'm like, holy crap. Like, it's like,
gone.
Everything's wiped out. And I'm like, they're not kidding. So I was like, all right, well, I'll just go get some bread. Gone. I turned the corner. You know how Kroger makes you like the perimeter stuff, and then they put everything, and so you have to go up and down the aisles to get you the impulse buy. And I turned the corner and I literally see 2 old ladies. I'm not even joking.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, they had 2 old ladies. And I was like, I'll just do some spaghetti. I'm like, that's no big deal. I was like, that's simple. We can do some spaghetti. I'll do some meat, we'll be good. Italian. And so I turned the corner and I'm going straight because I was familiar with this Kroger's, and I see these 2 old ladies. They both had 2 carts each, one in front, one in back.
Didn't they have sweatbands on?
Yeah, they had sweatbands here. I'm not joking. I wish I would have recorded this. I'm not lying. I'm following them. They look like they know where they're going. They had sweat wristbands like they're from the 80s. Okay.
Oh, they was prepared.
They were hardcore. The only thing they were missing was like grenade straps and like shotgun shells. Okay.
Shoulder pads.
Oh my gosh. And literally like they're in single file, and they turned the corner of the spaghetti aisle where like they keep the spaghetti in the marinara. And I'm like, all right, I'm going to follow them. They know where they're going. I'm like, I must see where this is going, because I'm like, I feel like society gives me my material that I need. So I follow this. I'm like, I feel compelled that I must be a witness to this. We stop literally in front of it, and there's not a whole lot on the shelves. And the lady looks around and goes, puts her arm into the shelf, pulls the cart up, and just goes like this, clears the shelf out.
No.
Took all the spaghetti. The lady behind her took the rest of the marinara, and I'm like,
And then they're holding onto the carts going
down the aisle.
I
in
feel like
single
this is
file.
I feel like this is an episode from The Walking Dead. Like, I feel like I just walked
100%.
into.
Seriously. And I'm like, well, I guess we're not doing
So
spaghetti.
he texts me, he goes frozen pizza. I'm like, I don't care. I just had a kid and I'm nursing. I'm hungry. Like food.
I'm
I
just
don't
hungry.
care.
Just give me
So-
food.
In there.
So I'm like, please
You've been
God,
there.
let there be frozen pizza. So I turned the corner and there was DiGiorno's. Like there's a DiGiorno's commercial right
Oh,
there for you.
see,
So I'm like,
there you go.
threw a couple in
Shout
there,
out
pulled
to
up to the
DiGiorno.
line. Oh my gosh. So my point to that is like, I think if we would have made different decisions based off of certain things, I don't know if we would have been in a situation to really kind of be ready for some of that. I think we would have been caught up in the fear of everything that, but
Mhm.
because of the long-term decision making that we were putting in, even though it forced our hands, we were able to go through all of that craziness really without any stress. It was really
Mhm.
wild. We were appreciative. And so like the negative, like the corporate situation, actually turned into be one of the better blessings that kind of came through.
Oh,
Yeah,
at the
which
time,
I think is
it
I
was
think it's really
horrible,
cool
but-
too. And I love that you guys, you know, and I hear this so much that like people took the COVID situation and kind of turned it around into, you know, something that ended up working for them as well. And I feel like in that moment, it was kind of like you guys' little glimmer of like, this is an opportunity. And you may not have even realized it at that point in time. But especially with you having Lily, right? Like it just seems like all the puzzle pieces kind of started falling into place for you guys to be able to kind of take it to the next level. But now I have a question because, you know, seeing Armageddon, and
The
everything.
man's still kneeling there in front of his kid, just so you know. I left him there.
That's so crazy. Now, when you are dealing with people in Google ads, do you see this on their side? Like, do you ever have people that come to you that are like, it's all falling apart. I'm trying to figure these things out. Where do we even go to like start getting more ads? Because I know that a lot of people get confused with ad spending. Do you do Facebook? Do you do Google? What makes sense? Where does this go? Do you use SEO? Is there other things that come in? Do you guys see that you find that within your clients, or do they seem to be like, I kind of know this is the next step, just tell me what to do kind of a situation?
So I'll answer it this way. The reason why I actually think like 2020 was a really good example of this. I think what 2020 did was created an atmosphere of lack, this mentality that there wasn't enough for people. And I think it put a lot of people in mindsets that they had to struggle and, you know, they had to get theirs, and it was very selfish motivated. And because of that, I think a lot of businesses struggled. I had a client come to me and he had a digital company kind of drop the ball. He got blackballed by Google.
Oh, yep.
And he was really wanting Google to work for him. And once Google kind of blackballs you and they blacklist you, it's so hard to get back into the good graces of Google. They have a very strict.
There's a mafia.
Yeah,
Right.
zero. Like once you kind of break their policies, like it's
okay.
Zero tolerance.
Because
And
they're
so-
protecting the consumers.
So this was actually a good part to pause. So Google trades on trust, just like the rest of the world. That's why there's a systematic effect or attack on trying to break societal trust. If you can lose trust in the dollar, then the value of the dollar goes down. If you lose trust in your neighbor, then you know you're not going to be willing to support and help your neighbor. If you lose trust in your marriage, so trust is everything. When you go out in public, you go to a restaurant, you trust that it's going to be safe. You're going to, you know,
They're not going to
oh,
spit your food.
so you're not filled with fear. You know, when somebody hands you money, you trust that that pender that they give you is the value of what it is.
Okay.
Google trades on trust. A lot of businesses think Google will protect the relationship between Google and the advertiser, and that's not true. Google will protect the relationship between Google and the end search.
Correct.
Because they treat it as if they don't present relative information based off your search, if they don't present safe, reliable solutions to whatever it is that you're looking for, it breaks trust.
And they're going to go somewhere else.
And they're
Just
going to
like
go
any other store. They'll go to Bing, they'll go to Yahoo, they'll go to Facebook. They won't
Oh,
go to
okay.
Google.
Correct.
That
Even
makes
though you're
sense.
putting money in Google's hands, Google's still going to protect that relationship between the customer, not the business owner. And it's a lot of the mentality is built around if your friend recommends a restaurant to you and it sucks, and they recommend another restaurant to you and it sucks, you're going to stop taking their recommendation. You lose trust in that friend. Like your taste just is not good. So that's how there's been many times where like people are like, go take a look at this Indian restaurant. It's the best in the world, or like it's best in town. And it's like,
No, it's
I
not. We've had the best.
yes.
I beg
No.
to differ.
Unfortunately, went out of business. We're
Yeah.
still sad about it.
So anyways, so this client came to me and he got blackballed, and he was frustrated because he was really hoping that Google would be a part of his advertising strategy.
Mhm.
And he asked me if I could help him. I said, I don't know if I can. He's like, I've gone to 3 people or 3 companies. They've taken money. He was like, I spent probably, I think it was like $2,500 to $5,000 or $2,500 to $5,000. And he was like, I don't know. And I was like, I'm not going to be cheap. And I'm like, I can't promise I can help. I said,
Yeah.
you know, with what you are suspended for, they have 0 tolerance for. And I said, he goes, I don't even know what I'm suspended for. And I was like, well, let me look. And so we started talking, and I spent probably a good 5 to 10 hours on this, looking into it one night. And I was like, hey, honey, take the kids. Let me see if I can help this guy. I think he was an HVAC guy. And he was like, he's like, I've had the last XYZ years. And he goes, I can't figure out how to get ahead. And so I got him his answers, and I said, you know, they're probably not going to let you back. I was like, they're not going to give you a clear reason. They've basically signed you. I was like, you're going to have to basically start from scratch. And here's some suggestions I'd recommend, and I'll help you through it. And so we were talking, and through the conversation, he goes, I just don't want too much business. And I kind of blinked at him, and I was like, what do you mean by that? And he goes, I'm afraid that if too much business comes in, I can't help everybody. And I said, that's a good problem to have.
Right.
He goes, what do you mean? And I said, I would rather solve the problem of too much versus the problem of too little.
Mhm.
And I said, so, you know, have you ever had a situation in your business where you've had too much? Did you manage to get everybody taken care of? He goes, yeah. He goes, I outsourced some stuff. And I was like, did you still profit? He said, yeah. And I said, there's your problem. I was like, your problem is not advertising. Your problem is not Google. Your problem is your mentality that, you know, over the last 5 years, you've bought into this idea that there's not enough, and that, you know, you're afraid of not being able to satisfy everybody, versus the pressure of forces you to think and operate differently. And it may not be the way you think it, but, you know, I would rather solve that problem of too many people needing me,
Mhm.
because now I have reasons to go around town and go, I need some help. This person needs this, needs that. So now I'm a benefit to the people around me. And so he goes, I've never had anybody talk to me like that before. And I was like, well, I don't know how else to talk to you. Well, I think he wrote it. What was this? He goes, well, tell me how much I owe you. And I was like, no, you don't owe me anything. I was like, I didn't really do anything. I just got you answers. And he goes, no, for real, however much time you did, I'll write a check. He wrote a check for, how much was it?
I don't know. It's exorbitant.
Yeah, it was like, it was a decent amount compared to what he paid. And he wrote it instantly without a second thought. He was appreciative, he was grateful, and all of that.
And his business
But you were
is
honest with
flourishing.
him.
Yeah.
You know, and I just spoke truth to him
But his
versus
business
like,
is flourishing, and he hasn't had to go back to
he
Google.
hasn't
so-
gone back. He hasn't.
That's
And
awesome.
I'm not saying Google's for everybody, but what I'm saying is that 2020 created an umbrella thought process in society where it was just not enough.
Yeah.
So to go back to answer your question, the business owners who are focused on more, basically they're forward focused and are not focusing on the status quo of things. They're the typical ones that are growing. They don't have time to get caught up in not enough, you know, so on and so forth. They're just focused on growth. They're just focused on where do they need to be next, so on and so forth, versus the business owners who are kind of towing the line and they're caught up in the current events and stuff like that. Usually they're the ones that come to me and they're struggling. Most of the time they don't stick as a client simply because they have false expectations and they think I'm a miracle worker. but they don't realize that I can bring business to a client with Google, but I cannot overcome the client's thought process.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that makes a lot of sense.
I can't stop them from, go ahead.
Oh,
no,
you're good.
You're good. And you've also got, from my point of view, what I see as well is you have almost like a fear of success for people that maybe got in, especially I know that for COVID, for some people, their businesses actually kind of like blew up, right? Like we saw that in the real estate market, which is what I was doing more of during COVID, and we were considered essential. So I got to continue business, and it like exploded here to the point to where like you were getting phone calls from everywhere. You had enough people that were offering things on your homes, and which then, entices people to jump in because I think it's going to be easy. And in reality, it took a lot out of people. And then when everything kind of finally calmed down, kind of like you were saying, people kind of had this false narrative of like, oh, well, I must be doing something wrong. And it's like, no, you also have to look at the market, where it's at and how it's shifting and how that affects your business. And it sounds like that's kind of what you were explaining to him as well, along with his mindset and the direction that he was thinking, was understanding that, like you said, Google may not necessarily be for everyone, which I think is really empowering, because you do hear so many people that are like, you should do ads, you should do ads, you should do ads. And at the same time, that doesn't work for everybody. Just like social media doesn't work for everyone, yet there are businesses all over the globe that are thriving that don't use social media as a platform.
Right. Yeah. Well, and I had this thought as Dustin was talking, and you kind of just brought it back to that. One, to your earlier question, I would say the people that I tend to attract are more abundance mindset people. I'm sure you've heard the phrase of like, you attract to who you are, not what you want. And Dustin and I are very big on abundance mindset, that there's plenty to go around. Our whole business is built on it. It needs to, like, there needs to be too much to go around for our model to work, actually, as you know. But yeah, the people that work the best with us, they're trusting. They might want to be somewhat involved because obviously it's their business and they care, but we have some people that literally send us a check every month, and I don't know that we've talked to them in 6 months. They just know that it's working, and they want to outsource it. They want to hand it off. So that's the first part. But on the abundance part, that's how our entire model is built. People will ask, hey, do you do this? Yes. And it's not because we particularly do it, but I never wanted employees. I didn't like being one, so I didn't want to have them. You can never motivate an employee as much as another business owner. And so I love having my community of people like Kat with the Lotus Effect to do admin and some of that stuff, to, we have a young lady who does our SEO. We have a young lady who does our social media. I just found a really cool guy that went to the same college I did. He's just graduating, and I'm like, this is like a time warp again, but went to Boston College and found me on LinkedIn, and he does TikTok. So we keep adding all these pieces, but then I also have a single dad coach and a parenting coach and a blended family coach. And if you want to leave corporate and not drink as much and spend time with your kids, like all varying kinds of parenting coaches, because of what we do with the dads as well. But I want to be the hub where people come and say, Anneliese, do you know someone who does this? Yes, I do. Or I will go find them. But we do also sometimes tell people, hey, this isn't for you. We've had a lot of people come in for Google ads. And then because of how the model works of what we do, we get paid whether you do Google ads with us or whether we refer it out. And so if someone's better to do social media, here's an example. We had they're really good friends of ours. It's a couple, and they work for a company that does, she says they talk to dead people because they do consulting for funeral homes. And they wanted to do more Facebook stuff. And my contact said, you don't want to do Facebook because the demographic that you're serving are 40-year-old white males, and they are on Twitter and they are on LinkedIn. Well, I was really grateful I had her in my network, because I could have sent her in the wrong direction. Now they're also going to do Google ads with us. But I feel that I can be completely honest with people about what's best for them, because I have such a wide network of different things that we offer and that we're connected with. And I feature a lot of them on our website, because there is enough to go around. And I want you with what's best to help your business flourish. And I want you to know that, oh, this is all they offer, because I had to work for that company for years, and they wanted us to sell this product. And I'm like, they don't need that product. They are fine. And they're underfunded in their Google ads. Why are we selling them everything when this is all they need? So anyway.
Yeah. So rules without relationship equals rebellion. And we live in a society where everybody knows the rules, but nobody has a relationship. And then they wonder why we rebel against each other all the time. And, people come to us and, we're like the third stop in their digital walk. And they've been burnt by a big company, or they didn't get what they were expecting. And I can't promise I'm going to do better just because of the digital world. I don't know what they're willing to do. I don't know the shape of their website, all of that. I had a client, this is way back when I was just learning this. He was a PC repair company. And he was like, he looked at me, he goes, Google's the only advertising I want to do. And he goes, I'm all in. And I said, okay, great. And he goes, can you help me? And I said, well, I don't know. He goes, I want growth. And so I literally sat in his office for about 3 weeks, and I watched and I observed, and I was taking a look at all of his marketing and trying to free up some dollars and just kind of get some stuff in order for him. Listening to phone calls. I was listening to the staff. I was getting some marketing and together for him. And I quickly realized that his main face of the business, the person who handled the phones, handled the customers when they walked to the door, so on and so forth. He had two different, so the owner of this company had some wrong thought processes. His thought process was anybody with a computer was his customer, meaning like he could service everybody.
Yeah.
The other part of it was he thought if he threw more money at a situation that he would get more business. So after sitting there for 3 weeks and watching, I observed two things. One, the average person who walked through his door was about 42 to about 56 years old. What that meant was they were of the age where they had spendable money, but they had no time, because all their time was wrapped up in working, climbing the corporate ladder.
Yeah.
Could they fix it themselves? Were they smart? Yes. That was his demographics with those people. It wasn't the 22-year-old who has zero time, hyped up on Mountain Dew and knows how to do the digital world better than anybody. You know what I'm saying? While they're playing Call of Duty at the same time.
YouTube and fix their computer.
The other one was the biggest problem that I saw was the person that was answering his phone, and that was the face of the business, so to speak, that coordinated and quarterbacked everything. He was more excited, naively, innocently, he was more excited about his competitor, Micro Center, than he was about the company. And so when somebody would call and ask, hey, do you have this? Can you do that? It didn't fall within his understanding of what they did, even though the owner goes, yeah, we do that. But because the owner wasn't slowing down to cultivate this person, he would go, no, we don't do that. But you should go take a look at Micro Center. That's where I like to go.
Oh, wow.
So if he would have started advertising, he wanted to spend like $5,000 a month in advertising with this expectation it was going to grow. I could have been a miracle worker. But I couldn't have fixed the phone. I couldn't have fixed the individual that person was going to get connected with. And so that person was going to walk that person, that call right out the door back to Micro Center. So his advertising would have just been advertising for Micro Center. So I brought the report to him. I pulled hundreds of phone calls and I showed it to him, and he goes, no, that's not the case. I said, well, why don't you listen to it? If you disagree, we'll continue to go forward with this. He did. He took 2 evenings and he listened to everything, and he came back and he was mad. He was mad as a hornet. And because it was thousands upon thousands of dollars a month that was being referred to a competitor innocently. Yeah. And I look, and he goes, what do you think I should do? And I said, well, I wouldn't fire the guy. I mean, the guy's an asset. But I said, have you slowed down and worked with him? Have you coached him? And he goes, he should know this already. And I said, well, that's the mentality of got you in this problem. And I said, but we can advertise. Because I was honest with him, and I put him first. I put the relationship first versus my profit. And I removed his expectations and I brought it down to more of a reality. He trained the guy up, and all of a sudden, just by training the guy, thousands of dollars started coming back in per month into his business, so that when he advertised, so advertising will do that I have discovered will either amplify your success or amplify your failures. Depending upon, so the more money you put on it, the more it's going to expose the things that are wrong in your filter process, whether it's the phone, whether it's your website, whether it's your SEO, whether it's certain mindsets. We have a client that we have to constantly wrestle with all the time, that the person who answers the phone needs constant reminder that
she's amazing at customer service. She is afraid of sales. And he kept coming to us as the scapegoat, saying, well, what's wrong with my advertising? And I'm going to leave out names and industries and things to protect the innocent, because he's a really valued client of ours. But he said, what's going on? Like, it just shut off. And this was back in November. And I was actually really grateful to the young lady. She is really good at details and she's really good at customer service. Just sales is not, she was never trained in sales. So the fault really fell with the owner. But she would be like, hey, like, I'm calling these numbers and emailing them and I'm not getting anything back. And I was like, okay, because I do a monthly report for her or for him every month. And he was our original client that came on with us. So who was actually a former client from my old job. And then she said, yeah, like, are we advertising on TikTok? And I said, not to my knowledge. Because if you knew this guy, like, he's not going to be on TikTok, probably. We could do some cool, like, personas maybe and get him a personality, but bless him. He's good at what he does, just not personality.
Totally get it.
And so, like, all these clues were there. And he came, he's like, Anneliese, like, you're telling me that we're getting all of these clicks and all of these impressions, and you're sending me these texts and you're so excited. And he goes, but on our end, like, it's not converting, like, we're not. And I'm like, okay. So thankfully, because of all the detailed stuff he has me do, because if not, we would have never caught it. There was a website that came in, and for anyone that's listening, was it AdSense anyway, if you Google just the word AD and then SENSE, AdSense.clicks or something, it was a site that they were funneling everything to. They were doing TikTok ads and targeting or businesses that targeted homes that were also hiring, and they were doing them in Spanish and French. So they were targeting these people. So she was getting these calls that were either bots that were scanning the website and filling out the form, or she was getting people that spoke French or Spanish that were looking to be hired, saying, what do you mean, we're not getting hired? And so the route there was not the advertising, the route there was his website. So we totally redid his website. It actually opened up another division of Never Miss a Moment Consulting for me to consult people on how to make sure your website is safe from this. So the problem created a solution, or vice versa. Anyway. And then later he was like, Anneliese, it's happening again. And I finally sat him down. I was like, look, are we on your cell phone? Are you at home? Are you not at the office? And I was like, we are not the problem. I was like, every stat is up. You just increased your budget. Like, things are going really well. Her conversion rate is piss poor. She's not converting. I said, you need to get in there. Because I promise, if you took the same calls, I've heard you on the phone, you're a salesperson, you're a business owner, you're going to get the results. And I said, you need to work with her. I said, she doesn't follow up. There might be someone that, like, marked, hey, I want to, like, look at this service maybe in a month, 2 months, 3 months. She had no follow-up system. So I went into the dashboard and marked follow-up, and I was like, hey, you might want to check this one out. And I was trying to be polite as possible because she's sweet as pie and she's so good at handling people's concerns and all of that. And they really need her doing customer service and someone else doing sales, but that's a whole other topic. But last month, their conversions went from whatever the number was to 1 out of 4, which was just this drastic improvement. And she actually said, no, keep the budget increase. We're getting more calls, and she's, and leads, and she's working on converting them. So that was a really long answer to your question. But
go ahead.
Yeah. Well, but what's interesting is you kind of, both of you keep coming back to you can still be the front face of your business, or you can be the CEO. And it's super important to make sure that you are building the relationship and the trust and being aware of what is happening in your business, versus what I have seen some people do is they do hire people, they delegate it out, and then kind of go so hands off that they don't realize where the issues are. So I love that you guys not only do Google ads, but there's also the back end piece. There's the reports. There's really actually trying to dig in and figure out where the root problem is, versus staying on the surface where a lot of people could choose to stay.
So I would say, and for the sake of time, I want to respect your schedule. I would say a lot of companies are acquisition focused. We're retention focused.
Correct.
Meaning we don't need a lot. We just need enough to stay with us. And so that requires relationships. You only need kind of a subsurface relationship to sell somebody. It takes a completely different set of skills to give people reasons to stay with you. And so we're more long-term, because our mentality is that if your business is thriving, then we have a healthy relationship. So we put all of the responsibility, the burden of proof on us to show our value to that company. And as we continue to show it, companies are not that strict with us, our partners, because we have a vested interest in their success. Because if they're not doing well, then they're not a client no more. Then I got to go find another one. And that doesn't help anybody. And it's counterproductive to the schedule and stuff and the goals that we're trying to set up. So literally right out of the gate, we have a vested interest with somebody because we want to see them succeed, because the more they succeed, the more money they want to spend with us, the longer they want to stay with us. The more intimate that I do get to know their campaign, their goals, and their focuses, and then the less controlling they are in that relationship, which is a win all around. So we're not trying to throw mud against the wall to see what sticks. We're actually kind of surgical in the relationships. And because we have the freedom to handpick the relationships, we're not in a situation of desperations. All of our clients are very happy with us because we go into it knowing the personality styles, their needs, the expectations.
Their families.
We're available. We can be contacted. And if there is a problem, they can reach out, and we're there. They're not having to. They don't know if they're going to get a new rep this month or whatnot. So we provide a lot of security there.
No, and I love that Dustin brought that up, and he said it so well, and I should put it on our website somewhere. But for years, I guess I worked at where I worked for 14 years, my average retention rate was 83%. And that was unheard of. And those customers would not only stay with me. There's one client who he has now followed us over to Never Miss a Moment, but I started him at a $900 a month Google ad budget, and over years raised it to a $10,000 a month Google ad budget.
Wow.
And now I'm his sole CMO, quarterbacking, whatever, I guess just female quarterbacks, right? And Dustin manages the Google ads, and he's in the Caribbean somewhere right now and is totally fine. But he followed me over, and a lot of my customers followed me over. So that retention, like that started back in 2007, 2009 for some of these customers, is still going just with our company. It's because we always put relationship first. I would tell people, no. Like, and here's an example. So we work with a lot of B2C service companies. So a year or two ago, whenever the gas prices shot up, that affects service-based companies because they have to fill their trucks. So diesel went from $3 a gallon to $6 a gallon.
Yeah.
We actually coached him to lower his budget, put his CMO stuff with me on a payment plan so he could keep his trucks going. Because if his trucks couldn't get filled, then none of it worked. And he was so appreciative of that custom treatment, but it was what was right for his family. And I always say that we get you because we are you. You know, I was a daughter of a family-owned business growing up. We are now, a family-owned business, and we're parents, just like a majority of our clients are. We get it. We get when one kid gets hit with something at 102-degree fever, and then it passes, all through the house. You know what that's like?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So if someone contacts me and was like, hey, like my kid was like, cool. We understand each other because we're going through or have gone through the same things.
Yeah. And I think it's a beautiful testament to what you guys stand for, how you operate, not only in your business, but also in your personal life as well. And I think it's a really unique perspective for people to see that, like, you really can build businesses and be there for people. And not only does that fully support them and fill your cup, but it also generates this organic growth where you can decide to take it the way you want to versus the struggle that we see so many people go through when they're in their businesses. So I think you guys have shared so much information and, not just Google ads, but just the importance of retention and being aware of what's going on in your company and making sure that whomever it is that you hire is invested for your best interest. Are they going deeper? Are they asking the questions, or are they giving you quick generic answers? Because that's how they operate. And I get it. Some people just are surface level and it is what it is, but you really have to be aware of that, especially when you're an entrepreneur, especially when you're a solopreneur and you own your own business. Like, that is your life. That is your lifeline. And so it really makes a difference in who you bring into your life. So I have a question for both of you. So each one of you can answer. As we come to a close, one thing I always ask all of my guests is, do you happen to have a quote or a piece of advice you'd like to leave the audience with? I know Anneliese was like, dang it, I knew it was
coming. You get to go first because I should have remembered this. And now I'm like, what am I going to say? I might answer the exact same way I did last time. I can't remember what quote I said last time, but I do have a favorite.
I would say piece of advice, and then I'd have a quote. I would say I had a mentor in my life tell me, he said, problems handled.
You knew you were going to say this.
Yeah,
it's his favorite.
He was like, Dustin, he goes, problems handled properly always leads to growth. We get paid in our nation to solve problems. Look at corporate, look at your job, you're paid in direct proportion to the problem that you're solving. We live in a nation where we're a nation of solutions in search of problems. And so what I would say is, I think if a small business is going to launch, we always start, I don't know why, but people start out of this desire for more. Maybe it's to provide for a family, maybe it's a little bit more control of their time, but then it quickly goes into the realm of greed, and then they get lost, and they don't realize that their decision making is more in the realm of greed than it is through a realm of character. I personally feel if people focus on character first, profit follows. And I think if you're going to start a small business, start with your values first, and that will attract to you the clients you want. A lot of people want to start with the profit, but then they get lost. And then the temptation of it is going, well, then I'll cut a corner here, or I'll do this, or I can cut this person out. And when you start to shortchange the process for people, then you start to mess with other people's lives too. And I think people need to slow down that small businesses, medium businesses are the backbone of our nation. And we need more people out there operating in character, realizing that it's not just about you, that there's a lot of people who are in need of you to succeed, because the money's not supposed to stop at you. It's supposed to flow through you to get to proper places. And so I think people start their journey with good intentions, but then they get caught up in the storm when they just need to slow down and realize that character always brings profit.
I love that. Okay, Anneliese.
We're so in tune. I love that he said, I knew what he was going to say too. So I have a bunch of things flowing through my head. First thing, my quote before I forget it. And I may have said this the last time, but the way you do one thing is the way you do everything. I don't know who said it. I don't know where I read it, but it falls into what Dustin's saying with character. Someone did a post, and you see so many posts on LinkedIn. I'd love to give credit, but it was about the grocery cart test, where you can tell the character of someone if they put away their grocery cart. And I think my dad may have taught me that. I remember it being instilled to me and I was, Daddy, like, it's the right thing to do. And my dad is someone who's very big on character. Like, I stole a peanut when I was 4, and he made me take it back to the manager and apologize. Oh, no. And he didn't call me a thief. He just said, we don't steal. Yeah. So big on character in my family. But with what Dustin was saying, I I do know who did this one because I just saw it, but Tony Albrecht, who is a decent friend of mine on LinkedIn, had a lot of posts go viral. He was an attorney and now he helps attorneys with LinkedIn. He said, if you try to build authority, you're always going to fail. But if you try to build authenticity, you will build authority along the way. And so my advice is, don't be afraid to put your values out there. People did not understand what I was doing 2.5 years ago. Some of people may actually thought that I was nuts. Like, you have 14 years experience in Google Ads. Why aren't you putting your credibility out there? Why aren't you doing it? And it's like, you know what? Because it's not what I'm passionate about. It's not who I am. It happened to be what I fell along in. Oops. Here's the dog. It's my can. Sorry. Yeah, good. It happened to be what I fell into, and there's history as to, why I got into it, which is irrelevant now, but it was always about helping the customer. It was always about helping the family on the other side of the customer. This is not new. This is what Anneliese has been doing since 2007. I was always sitting down with my customers and asking them about their kids and their grandkids or their dog, if they're a dog dad, because some of our dads are dog dads. And I think they might love their dogs more than some of us love our kids. It's sweet. But now I literally had someone today on a comment, unsolicited, say, Anneliese, thanks for what you're doing every day. It encourages me to keep my priorities right. Do you mind commenting on my posts a little bit more by saying stuff like that? Like, that'd be awesome. I had no idea you were like being inspired by me every day. But I was just being true to who I was and what I was passionate about. And people have bought into that. People now come to me like, I don't think I can afford you, but can I meet with you just to meet you and just see if there's some way you can help me? Sure. And sometimes in my head, I was like, Anneliese, what are you doing? But it just was what was on my heart. And, I'm a writer. I always have been. I actually went to state in the 7th and 8th grade for writing competitions. But it was always had to be something I was passionate about. And I knew I could not sustain writing 5 to 6 times a week because, it's a lot.
It's a lot.
Writing about Google Ads or marketing or social media. Now, people know I know my stuff. I do my Tuesday triumphs and my Thursday tips. Like, they know I know what I'm talking about. But I was more excited about shining the spotlight on other people. That was another thing I got criticized for by some coaches, actually, who I fired, was like, Anneliese, like, what did they say? You're putting out oxytocin content. And I was like, good. Like, there's enough there's enough negative. No, because it didn't build credibility. Or they said that I shouldn't put human jungle gym on my headline. And I'm like, well, that's who I am. And they're like, well, don't you think it's going to lower your credibility? And I'm like, well, that's kind of my life. So I put very clearly out there what my life is so that if people don't want that person to help them, like, we're just not going to be a good match. Like, my kids are going to come first. Your stuff's going to get done during bedtime and nap times. That's when it happens. It gets done. It gets done excellently. But yeah, just don't be afraid to put out there what you stand for. And that's what attracted me to you when God put you in my feed, because that's still my only answer to how we met, because there was 0 mutual connections except God, which is a good one. So, but you put your heart out there and you put your, and yeah, I'm going to brag on Kat for a second. You put your story and what you were passionate in helping other women not have to go through what you went through out there. And I was like, who is this chick? Like, I need to know her. It wasn't even to try and be on your podcast, but that's what attracted me. And if you had been like, I'm really good at admin and I can like take that off your plate, I would have been like, okay, yay, good. Because it's white noise, because everyone does that. But the people that come out there with their character and their values, that's what grabs me. That's what helps people cut through the noise. So,
you're just so sweet.
Not that this is a LinkedIn seminar, but the people with character and the people with values, I think they find each other very quickly on LinkedIn.
Yeah, I agree with
because everyone else, it's just like, I'm like, oh gosh, I know you and I want to support you, but I'm like,
I think in
What
a
are you
land,
about?
I think in a landscape where everybody's screaming me first,
Yeah.
the one who's screaming you go first
Yeah.
is the one that stands out the most.
Yeah, definitely. And speaking of LinkedIn as well, you guys have to share with us, then how can everybody find you? How can they connect with you? I know LinkedIn is your primary, but how can everybody be in your world?
Yeah. So my name is on the bottom there, if you can see that on the Zoom. If not, it's in all of Kat's notes. But I am on LinkedIn. That is where I hang out. And generally, at least Monday through Friday, I'm there. I do have a Facebook page. I'm not on there a lot because if any parents are listening to this, you only have time for so much grabbing your attention, but I'm on there. I don't post to it a lot. I should figure out how to automate that, but just haven't yet. But I'm on there. If you're on Facebook, I'm also on there under my name. I am on Instagram, but again, rarely on there except catching a quick picture of someone who's only on Instagram. And then our big thing is our website is nevermissamomentconsulting.com. And our kids are on there on our About Us page, our brand manager, which is our daughter, and our chief cuteness officer, our CCO, our 2.5-year-old son.
So cute. So
you can see some of our family on there. Dustin is under the radar on LinkedIn on Fridays because I'm copywriting his posts. So if you want to hear, about blowout stories at Target that are like volcanoes and being sucked out with a straw, those are not things Anneliese would say, but I will quote my husband.
Totally.
If you go on our website, on our Let's Chat page, I answer every single one of those. That's me. That is not a bot. That is not a VA. And you can check out some of our collaborators on our collaborators page and on our services page. And if you happen to message me and mention Chat with Kat, we do have a first-time offer for all of our podcast listeners that we can introduce you to. You just have to mention so I know that you came from here. So
that's awesome. Oh my gosh. Thank you guys so much. Of course, we'll have all that information in the show notes for you guys as well. So you can get Annaliese's name spelt right. We'll have the links and everything. LinkedIn is the place that you want to follow her.
To learn how to spell.
It took me a while.
I can't thank you guys enough for being a part of the podcast today. Thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and your just genuine enthusiasm and relationship building, selves.
You're welcome.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you guys. You are so welcome. To everybody else out there, I hope you got some amazing takeaways. Definitely go find Anneliese on LinkedIn and follow her. She's always got some killer posts. I love some of the stuff that she puts up there, especially with her kids. And don't forget, until next time, do one thing positive for someone each and every day and see the difference that it makes in your life. So until next time, have a fantastic day. Hello again, and thank you so much for being a part of the podcast today. If you enjoyed this episode and it brought tons of value, we ask that you please share, like, and subscribe. Your support means the world to us and helps us to reach even more inspiring entrepreneurs who can benefit from these powerful conversations. If you haven't already, be sure to leave a review on your favorite podcast platform, as this feedback is an amazing gift that fuels our growth and helps us to continually improve this podcast. Looking for an extra dose of inspiration and empowerment? Then be sure to connect with me on social media. You can find me at The Lotus Effect, where I share valuable resources and tips while sharing my own journey of being an entrepreneur. And if you're interested in learning more about my coaching programs and services, be sure to check out my website at the-lotus-effect.com. Once again, thank you so much for being a part of Real Chat with Kat. Your presence and support makes all the difference. Remember, whether you find yourself in the depths of the mud or on the path of growth, we all have a unique journey. And just like the lotus, some of us start in the dirtiest of mud, yet as we rise and grow, we blossom into something beautiful, unique, and truly one of a kind. To all of my visionaries out there, keep rising and growing as you create your own Lotus Effect.